There are times when the world feels smaller and crueler than it ought to. The murder of Charlie Kirk is one of those times. It's not just the loss of a public voice or a figure in the headlines. It's the shredding of a family's future. Behind every microphone and every argument, there was a husband and a father. Behind Charlie's public life was Erica, his wife and partner, and those two precious children, a 3-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old son. They did not lose an abstract persona. They did not lose the founder of Turning Point USA or a political ally of Donald Trump. They lost a hand to hold at bedtime, a kiss and a hug after a long day, a laugh at the dinner table, a father who should have been there for birthdays and scraped knees and the small daily things that make up a life. The truth is intolerable. Charlie was the kind of man who stood up when most sat down. He spoke loudly, often, and without apology. You didn't have to agree with everything he said to recognize the backbone that it took to say it. Courage comes in many forms, and whether you admired him or found him infuriating, loved him or hated him, that willingness to stand in the ring and take punches is something that I respect. It's a quality that I try to emulate. It's why his death feels like a theft of something more than just a life. It feels like the theft of an example that we could all learn from, even if we'd argue with it every step of the way. We are a true crime podcast. We talk about monsters, Ted Bundy, Jack the Ripper, and we call them what they are. We do not parse or excuse evil. Political murder is no different. It is no more admirable, no more defensible than the most vile serial killing. If you are the kind of person who cheers because someone that you dislike has been taken by violence, then this is not for you. Turn this podcast off. There is no place here for celebrating murder, no matter the politics involved. Our work is about truth, about justice, and about remembering victims as people, not as points scored. Podcasting is, by nature, a quest for listeners. We strive to make quality content that draws in people from all walks of life. That's how ideas circulate, not by shouting into an echo chamber, but by bringing different voices together and forcing them, sometimes painfully, to reckon with each other. If we hope to attract listeners broadly, we must model what dignified disagreement looks like. We must show that dialogue, even abrasive, even heated, is preferable to bloodshed. Dialogue leads to better communities. Violence ends the possibility of any learning at all. We must also be blunt about the moral failure that underlies this act. The person who fired the shots, hiding in the darkness, taking the coward's route of striking from concealment and running away, chose the most vile, despicable, and cowardly option. There is a moral distinction between standing your ground in an argument and sneaking a bullet into somebody just to shut them up. Those who argue, who face the pain of a cross-idea conversation, deserve our respect far more than anyone who would settle disagreement with a gun. Even though I may not personally agree with many of them, to those who stood up to Charlie, who argued with him, who fought with words instead of bullets, you did the hard thing. You kept the conversation alive. For that, you deserve acknowledgement too, and not scorn. This is not about politics. This is about humanity. Sometimes the people that we disagree with most are the ones who show us our mistakes. Sometimes they force us to check our assumptions and refine our thinking. That is how progress is made. Painfully, imperfectly, through the friction of opposing views. If we are to be a country where ideas matter, we have to cultivate the capacity to listen even when listening stings. So, tonight, we remember a life cut short. We remember a husband to Erica who now carries an impossible burden. We remember a 3-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old son who will grow up with stories and pictures and the love of a community trying to hold them up. We remember a man with courage and conviction who stood in the public arena and did not shrink from the fight. Let this be a quiet promise. We will honor Charlie by refusing to let violence win the argument. We will honor him by choosing dialogue, by insisting on the dignity of debate, and by protecting the right of others to stand and speak. We will honor him by calling murder what it is: monstrous, cowardly, and utterly unacceptable. For Erica, for the young wife and mother who lost her partner and friend, and for their little girl and little boy who lost their father, we hold you in our thoughts, in our prayers, and in our grief. For those who will carry on the work that Charlie believed in, and for those who will choose to stand across the table and argue your own points rather than take the coward's way out, we honor you as well. May you all find strength in community, courage in conversation, and resolve in the work of keeping the dialogue alive. To Charlie Kirk, rest in peace, brother. May yours and all children grow up in a world where words, not bullets, settle disputes and decide our future, where a dissenting opinion is welcome instead of feared, and where the value of a human life is honored above political points scored. Tips flooded in. A man in a motorcycle helmet, a blue and white dirt bike, seen near the trail, seen near the body, seen and then gone. In the days after April Millsap's murder, investigators were drowning in grief, pressure, and public panic. But amid the chaos, a pattern emerged. Multiple people, from neighbors to joggers, reported seeing something that didn't belong. A man riding a dirt bike on a trail not built for engines. He didn't wave. He didn't stop. He just tore through the quiet like he had somewhere to be or something to escape. And just like that, the man on the dirt bike became the investigation's first major lead. This episode is about how the case took shape, the clues that stood out, the statements that didn't line up, and the slow process of turning scattered tips and grainy surveillance into something the law could hold on to. But it's also about obsession, how law enforcement chased this phantom figure, how the town latched onto him, and how one man's odd behavior began to look less like coincidence and more like guilt. As detectives worked the angles, April's phone data began drawing an invisible line straight toward a suspect. But it wouldn't be easy. There were alibis to test. There was science to analyze. There was a case to build, and no room for error. Hey, Angela, how's it going tonight?
Hey, John, it's good. How are you?
It's good. I mean, some shitty things happened in this country, this week, and I know that we're not a political show, but I felt like I had an obligation to call out a cowardly piece of shit for the vile behavior that he did. So there's that.
There's that, yeah.
But otherwise, good.
Yeah.
And you?
I am good. I am tired of people ending arguments with violence.
Amen.
We were given free will and the right to our own opinion, and let somebody have their opinion and move on.
And argument's cool, man.
Yeah.
That's how shit gets decided.
How we learn, it's how we grow.
Absolutely. You think about the founding fathers setting up this country and talking about you didn't think they fought? They freaking, half of them hated each other. They bitched and moaned at each other all the freaking time.
Exactly.
They didn't kill each other. They compromised. They
Exactly.
come to an agreement which built, in my opinion, one of the greatest systems of government this world has ever seen. So, yeah.
Did you ever see your parents argue growing up?
Never.
Never?
Never.
Well, no. Okay, so then that doesn't help my point at all. But I've seen my parents argue, and a little bit of arguing is good because you see the other side, you come to a conclusion.
100%.
It teaches you the things. They don't kill each other.
I could not agree more. And I should clarify, my parents definitely argued. They just had a hard and fast rule that the kids would never see them argue. But of course they argued.
Right.
You know?
And that's how they came to conclusions.
Yes.
So if you're going to tell me that there are any couples out there that have never argued, I don't believe that they even care about each other.
I call bullshit on that.
They obviously don't care about each other then.
Yeah. 100%.
Because an argument is the care to help someone grow.
100%. I couldn't agree more.
So
yeah,
that's how I feel about it.
Yep. I totally agree. And I mean, you know, argument brings out the best of both sides. It really does. I mean, you know, if you have two sides with competing ideas and they argue, usually once they meet in the middle, they take the best of both sides and come out to this middle point, which is the best for everybody.
Definitely.
You know, and it has never, ever, ever worked in society to just kill your opponents. It doesn't work.
Right.
Ask Hitler. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
he's dead.
Yeah.
Ask Mussolini. Oh, yeah. They hung him. I mean, it just has never worked.
Yeah.
You know? And I mean, look at the Romans. They made it a practice of murdering anybody that disagreed with them. How great is their empire today?
King Henry VIII?
Henry VIII, 100%. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yes, argue, but leave your damn guns at home.
Exactly.
Or carry them like I do for the other nutcases that decide that they're going to use them.
I know, right?
Don't use your gun for an argument.
No. Because that's a bell you can't unring. It's just, I'm sorry. I have no words that are nice, and we're trying to be a little nice here.
But the fact of the matter is what this dipshit did is amplify Charlie's voice. I don't even know. I mean, thousands of percent.
If he was trying to shut him up, he did it the wrong way, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we went from 18,000 Turning Point chapters across the United States to over 40,000 in like a week.
He took the mic from him, but he gave him a megaphone.
Exactly. And then there's people like me all over the world that are now saying, I'm Charlie.
Right.
We will take up the mantle. We will continue the fight.
Right.
Yeah. That's usually what happens.
I just, I don't know how to say it. Like, I have friends on both sides of the fence, and I hate watching them fight with people and ending 20-year friendships because of one argument. Why can't you just agree to disagree, realize that you still care about the person you cared about yesterday before they said that sentence?
100.
Because some of them is still in there of what you cared about before.
100%.
And move on.
And, you know, I mean, I don't think it's any great secret. I kind of avoid speaking of politics on this show, but I don't think it's any great secret of where I come down on the aisle. But I have friends that are liberals. I have friends that are homosexual. I have friends that are all over the map as far, I mean, you name it. And I have either, you know, talked to, had relationships with, have made friends of people from all walks of life with all different mentalities. And I'm a fuller, richer person because of that. They've never diminished me.
Right.
You know, I mean, I make it a habit to not argue politics with people because I don't think it gets anywhere.
No.
But having an honest dialogue about your position, I think is beneficial for everybody. And I don't know where. No, I do. I know exactly where.
Yeah.
We raised a generation of everybody gets a trophy to the point where now if somebody says something that hurts your feelings, you got to kill them.
And a generation of, I'm not advocating violence and abuse, but sometimes you need to spank your kid.
Well, I mean, we can't.
And you can't do that anymore. So kids don't know how to grow up and.
Well, they don't know how to handle adversity in any way.
Right, wrong. Yeah.
We grew up in the generation of, at least my father said this, but you're of the same generation of, we grew up with, oh, you hurt your finger? Well, it'll feel better when it quits hurting.
Exactly.
Go out and
rub
play.
some dirt on it and get over it.
We grew up in the generation of...
Do you want me to step on your foot, take your mind off of...
Yeah. Exactly. And I don't know, come home sometime before the streetlights come on, other than that, go take care of yourself.
Or we've discussed it. In my case, my family would honk the horn.
Yeah.
We couldn't go too far, but if we could hear the horn, it's time to come home.
But this teacup generation that we've raised where they need safe places to run to if somebody hurts their feelings, this is what it leads to.
Yeah.
It leads to people that cannot handle argument, whether it's intelligent argument or not. And that's what's really dangerous is we have an entire generation of people out there that even if you make an argument that proves them false, they cannot accept it.
Yeah.
Because intellect doesn't rule anymore. Feelings rule. And we can't be led by feelings because they change on a whim.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I have the biggest feelings that I can't control. We all know how weird I am. But
I'd say weird.
I still see the point of letting everyone have their own feelings and opinions and still being civil at the end of the day.
100%. Absolutely. Could not agree more.
You still have to put your kids to bed. You still have to put food on the table. You still have to make the world go round. And it takes all kinds. I said it earlier. I'm going to say it again. It takes all kinds, or it would be boring as hell if everyone agreed on absolutely everything.
Well, 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. And then on the other side of that conversation.
Which is ironic, right?
It is. The other side of that conversation is, we are a community whether we want to be or not. We're all humans in this together.
Okay,
and so
to that point, I have a story when you're done.
Okay. And so, when it comes down to it, when you kill somebody because they have a different opinion than you rob all of humanity.
Yeah.
You didn't just stifle a voice. You robbed humanity of who knows what. We don't know. Yeah. We'll never know. And this isn't just a political thing. This isn't just Charlie Kirk. You've heard me say the exact same thing about a number of victims in their tributes time and time and time again, and I'll continue to, that when you take a human life, you rob humanity of who knows what.
That spark, whatever it was going to be.
How many amazing presidents and senators and saints and whatever, musicians and artists have we lost to just murder, just people, insane acts of violence.
People who would take care of adopted kids that need adoption, people who would take care of animals, people who would, you've robbed them of all those people.
Exactly. And you had a story? So,
do you know Drew Lynch?
No.
He's the stuttering comedian.
Okay. No.
Okay. He's hilarious, but he did a video shortly after this incident. I'm not sure incident's a big enough word for it, but that's what I went with. That he was doing one of his comedy shows and a gentleman had a heart attack in his crowd.
Wow.
And watching people jump in, do CPR, call 911. No one checked his pocket for his political affiliation.
Exactly.
No one checked his pocket for his sexual orientation. They saw their fellow audience member unable to breathe and perform CPR. Where did that America go?
Well, that's just the thing. And with this new America that's taken its place allows a beautiful young girl to be stabbed to death on a New York subway for what exactly? I have no clue, by a total stranger. And it allows nonsense like the Boston bombing and the Oklahoma City bombing and, you know, these, all the number of shootings. And I mean, I can go on and on and on, but where it all comes down to, at the heart of it all, is, you know, kind of where I ended my little thing on Charlie Kirk. But, you know, what it comes down to is no respect for human life and for humanity and the gift that it is. I mean, it's just absurd to me that we're at this place and I can't even say in this country, in this world, because it's everywhere where, you know, we see it. You know, I was talking, I can't remember, it was 2 or 3 episodes ago where I was talking about Charlie Starkweather, and that was in, I think, 54, 56, in the mid to late 50s. And, you know, he killed 11 people. And I mean, it was huge news. It was like, you know, nobody had ever heard of this kind of insanity. We talked about Ed Gein. Now we're so desensitized to this shit that
I know.
I'm in the business of following true crime, and I don't even hear a small percentage of the cruel, inhumane shit that goes on all the time. And we don't even blink an eye at it.
I know.
As a society, it blows my mind.
What's terrible is the videos, obviously, because everyone was recording it, that are on the internet of what happened to Charlie. You can't take those down. His kids are going to see those someday.
Yeah.
And some of us, I don't know how to word this. The act itself, we're desensitized to having seen it. Like they have those things. Are you sure you want to see this video? And everybody's like, whatever. And they click yes, because they're like, yeah, we're sure we want to see it. I'm not desensitized to what happened, who it was, and that it was human. But the fact that we can see the unadulterated video of what happened and we're fine.
Yeah.
What has happened to us?
A lot.
So
a lot.
That's where I'm going to leave that. But I'm genuinely pissed that his kids are going to come across that someday.
100%. Yeah. I am just livid about the whole thing. And usually, you know, I shut these conversations down pretty quickly.
Yeah, but we're just kind of.
But you know what? This conversation needs to be had. People need to speak up on both sides of the aisle and say, this shit cannot happen anymore. Period.
Yep.
We are not okay with the violence, any violence. We're not okay with it.
Yeah. I don't care who it's against. I'm sick of it.
Yes. And we cannot tolerate it as a society. We cannot tolerate it. And there is an eventual conclusion to this, and it is absolute anarchy, and nobody wants it.
It's horrifying.
So it has to be turned around now, why it still can be.
It's horrifying because more people that you love, and I say you as a general you, not you because I'm looking at you, but more people that anybody loves are going to be casualties of this.
Absolutely.
And you got to think about that every time you wake up.
Well, and
the decisions I make or decisions somebody else makes, my family could be a casualty of that.
100%. And the fact of the matter is when there are bullets flying over crowds of people, it is just a matter of time before unintended victims occur. And I don't mean to minimize the fact, like with speaking about Charlie Kirk, I don't mean to mean like he wasn't innocent or anything like that, but I'm saying that
no, I get it.
Multiple
any of those students could have
been killed.
Yeah.
Easily.
A ricochet, it could have gone through somebody. It could have taken out a lot more than that person's intended target.
And it is just a matter of time before something like that happens. And,
Yeah.
then you talk about like all these school shootings and all the rest.
Yeah, what did those kids do? I hate that.
I know. Yeah.
The Jason Aldean concert.
Innocence. Yes.
What did any of those people do?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Or even if they did, who is that person to decide?
Yeah.
When they're shooting blankly into a field of faces. It's disgusting. It pisses me off, damn it.
Well,
Usually John's the one that's pissed off in this room.
Yeah, no, it is, it's just so sad and terrible and horrible. And I just felt like that conversation needed to take place.
And I appreciate
I had something to say, and you obviously had something to say. And so
I appreciate that you see all sides, that you are open enough and willing enough to see all sides. People can't see us, but I fist bumped him after he was done reading it because it was touching and important, and it's not just one-sided, and we can't just live one-sided.
No, absolutely not. And as crazy as it is to say, Charlie Kirk was probably the best example of listening to both sides of any human I've ever seen.
It was his tagline.
Yeah, 100%.
So
it's what made him this famous voice. Is because he would listen to both sides.
Yeah.
And the late and great Rush Limbaugh, he kicked all this shit off because he was one of the very, very first that encouraged his opponents to call in and argue with him.
Yeah.
And more of that needs to happen, not less. Way, way more.
Just vocal arguments, not physical.
Stand and scream and everything you want to, but you don't have to react in violence. But that healthy discord is how we move forward in society. That's how we got where we are. And if we're going to move forward, that's how we're going to move forward.
Yep.
When you resort to violence, we will go backwards, leaps and bounds. That is a promise. I 100% guarantee it.
What's that saying? History repeats itself, people.
Yeah. Yep.
So, okay. Well, Zolox, let's kick it out from under both of us this time because I jumped on it too.
That's all right. Where we're at tonight is in the middle of the search for April Millsap's killer, and one detail kept resurfacing. A man on a blue and white dirt bike riding fast with a helmet and anonymous. He wasn't part of the search party. He wasn't a neighbor, and the timing way too close for comfort.
Yeah, and it wasn't just one sighting. Multiple people who didn't know each other all described the same thing. A dirt bike, black helmet, and someone who looked like they were trying not to be seen. He didn't fit the scenery, and he sure didn't stick around to answer any questions.
Welcome back to Dark Dialogue, the podcast where we unravel the shadows of the human mind and dive deep into the mysteries that haunt small towns and big cities alike. I'm your host, John.
And I'm Angela, and together we shine a light on the stories that keep us up at night, unsolved disappearances, lives stolen too soon, and the questions that refuse to be buried.
In this episode, we're following the early case building efforts, how the man on the dirt bike became a person of interest, how law enforcement began narrowing down their focus, and how April's digital footprint pointed in an unexpected direction.
We'll look at inconsistencies in witness statements, an emerging suspect profile, and the quiet shift in the investigation from, quote, random act to something much more targeted.
And before we jump in, just a quick reminder, follow the show, leave a review, give us a thumbs up, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Every share helps keep April's story in the spotlight.
All right, John, let's talk about the man on the bike and how a blur on a trail became the investigation's first solid lead.
All right, well, let's jump in and do that. So, I've mentioned in the previous episodes, and do you kind of remember it's been a little bit because of my completely chaotic life.
It's not just yours.
But, I am the reason that our recording schedule is so jacked up currently. But Do we kind of remember where we're at in the story and everything?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember between her and Heather Dawn.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So just a real quick recap, April was a 14-year-old and she went to take her dog Penny on a walk.
Okay.
She was walking down the trail.
It was like babysitting little brother or walking a dog. Which one are we?
Yeah. And so she didn't come home. Her mom went out looking for her. Unfortunately, she found a bunch of police. And then in the last episode, we talked about them being taken to the police station, questioned extensively. Her young little boyfriend who did a dumb thing and messages. And, so cops were looking at him, but then they pulled the footage from the McDonald's to confirm his alibi and confirm that he was not part of it. And then we threw in a couple of other odd instances where we had the little drunk teenager that was just being a little weirdo.
Oh, yeah.
And the guy in the white van who creeped out a young girl, but turns out he was just a contractor out showing a couple of his employees a couple houses he worked on. And so
I almost feel like we should stop selling white vans.
Oh, I know. Well, it's kind of funny because
just stop.
I listened to True Crime Garage, and I think those guys are freaking awesome. But their thing and their merch is ban the van. They have ban the van.
I agree.
Ban the van. Yeah.
At least white. Why is it always a white van?
There's so many freaking creepers that use vans. It's insane.
But why is it always white?
It's not always.
I know, but 98% of the time it's white vans.
And it's because, quite simply, I would say there's probably 98% of the vans out there are white.
Yeah.
Because they're produced commercially. And almost all commercial vehicles are.
So you can put a
wrap
logo on it. Yeah.
Whatever.
All right, fine, but still.
Yep. So I would say that is the reason, but it's crazy how many.
Yeah.
Creepers are, well, that's why it's called a creeper van.
A creeper van, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at. And then you remember the bloodhound, I can't remember his name, but he tracked down her cell phone, which was found quite a ways away from her body. And then they found her backpack thrown into a yard quite a ways away from her body as well.
Right.
So there was several witnesses that came forward. So the first one that we'll talk about is a woman by the name of Mary Stein. And she was a college professor, and she gave one of the most detailed testimonies and said that she saw April give a, quote, tight, tense smile as she separated from a man who was holding his motorcycle helmet. And she described this man staring at April angrily. And he appeared to be significantly older than April and was wearing heavy clothing, which stood out because it was a warm or a hot summer day. And so that would definitely, raise alarm.
Yeah.
And then, but it also brings up, what you had said in one of the previous episodes about it's hard to believe that as hard as she fought, she didn't get any skin under her fingernails or anything like that. But he's wearing a heavy biking jacket, and long pants. And so, he's dressed like a motorcycle rider. They'd wear that stuff because if they lay the bike down, it protects them.
Oh, yeah.
So they dress heavy even in warm weather, but it would definitely stand out, when everybody's running around in shorts and a tank top. And here's this guy, dressed up like crazy. And then another witness was her husband, Doug Stein. And he was walking with her, and he also identified April on the trail, but he couldn't describe the man in much detail. But he did confirm the odd pairing between this older looking guy who didn't appear to be old enough to be like a father or anything like that. It was weird.
Okay.
And we've all, well, maybe we haven't, but I have definitely seen girls that aren't old enough to be with boys that are too old to be.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to get at?
Oh, yeah.
And so it makes a lot of sense why both of them would have been like, okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
When you see it's like obviously a father, daughter, uncle, niece, something like that, and you don't even think about it, but there is those couple of ages
It's
that don't fall anywhere logically usually.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like every town, including ours, and you probably know who I'm talking about, has that one guy that just can't let go, and he's still cruising Maine, and he's still hanging out at the parties, and he's still,
Oh, yes.
this is the guy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the dude from Varsity Blues that gets hit in the nuts
Yes.
with a wiffle ball bat. You know,
Yes.
there's a creepy freaking guy
It's
that
like they got nowhere to go yet.
yeah, they just have no life.
Awkward.
It ended when they graduated high school. That's their number one achievement in life was
Graduating high school. It's all over here. It's all over from here. Yeah.
So then another witness was a guy by the name of Eric Risky, and he saw April walking Penny beside a man with a dirt bike right around 6:25 p.m. And then on his return trip, about 25 minutes later, both April and that man were gone, but the dog remained. And he remembered the man's tense demeanor, his full face helmet, and his same heavy clothing, a backpack, and his description of the suspect as, again, older and physically imposing supported the Steins' account. Then we have another gentleman by the name of William Buchanan who saw a man on a blue and white motorcycle wearing a full face helmet. And although the helmet obscured his facial details, he was later able to identify the suspect.
Okay.
And then these couple I know that I've already mentioned before, and that's Amy and Gail Spinella. And they were near Liberty Trail where they saw April, again, with a motorcyclist. And then moments later, April was gone and her dog Penny was whimpering. The rider had made a U-turn. Oh, it's everything about this is just so damn tragic.
Yeah.
But they said that the rider had made a U-turn, parked, and then reemerged out of the bushes. And Amy would later recall his, quote, piercing eyes. And she was very instrumental in helping to create this composite sketch that was used. But ironically, she wasn't able to confirm the suspect from once he was finally arrested, even though her description of him led to this sketch. And then the last witness that we'll talk about is a classmate who was never named, no doubt because of their age, and that's fine. But one of April's classmates reported seeing her talking to a man on a blue and white motorcycle that evening. And then another witness near the woods close to where the body was found described a man resembling the same sketch as Amy had given. So all of these witnesses are telling pretty much identical stories. There's no big outliers there. You know, there's nobody saying, oh, I didn't see a guy on a motorcycle, but I saw like this 75-year-old, you know, I mean, nothing like that. All of their...
This guy in a horse rode through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of their testimony pretty much matches. They're able to describe the motorcycle, the helmet, the clothing, the age. If
the odd feeling,
without his helmet on, they were able to give some physical descriptions. If they saw him with it on, obviously, what are you going to describe?
With a helmet on.
Helmet on, right? So, but like I said, the composite sketch was synthesized from these accounts, and it emphasized the suspect's sharp eyes and stern expression. While some would later say that the image looked too young, the resemblance to the douchebag that's going to be arrested for this did generate tips, and it kept the public focused on this dirt bike rider. So along with that, then we said in the last episode that her phone was turned over to the FBI for their digital analysis unit, who then tore into that. And so we've already talked about the misreporting of it being a Fitbit, but it was actually just a sports tracking app on her son's Samsung Galaxy phone. And I think I'm pretty positive it was the MyFitnessPal tracking app. that she had on there. And on July 24th, that day, that app logged over 3,000 data points, providing one of the most detailed victim timelines that has ever been introduced into court. So at 6:28, April texted her boyfriend that crazy freaking sad text that says, "I think I almost got kidnapped, OMFG."
Mhm.
And then almost immediately after that, her recorded speed spiked, showing that she took off and started running.
Yeah.
And then from 6:31 to 6:33, there was those weird calls, the 3 failed calls that went to unknown numbers, where we think that she was probably trying to call for help. And the fitness tracker app at the same time shows her zigzagging, running in and around the woods. Obviously, she's trying to escape somebody.
Evade
chasing
somebody,
her.
yeah.
Yes. And then at 6:44 p.m., April's movement stopped at the location where her body would later be found. And then after 6:44, the phone began moving again, but this time between 13 and 22 miles an hour, speeds far too fast to be April on foot, but way more consistent with somebody on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
And then, as we talked about last episode, the device was then later discarded near Omo Road. And so the data transfer from her phone into a silent witness, I mean, it's one of the craziest cases I think I've ever seen for this digital evidence.
Mhm.
And it really is all because of that fitness tracker app. I mean, that's why we use them, because they literally are tracking all of our movements.
Right.
And so to have that on and logging during this was a tremendous amount of evidence.
It's one of those times where I wish dogs could talk comes into play.
100%. Yep. So then officers, once they figured out kind of what had gone on, they pretty much knew at this point, because of that phone activity, that somebody on a motorcycle attacked this girl and then rode off with her phone. So they went to a gas station and pulled surveillance footage, which showed a guy at a Speedway gas station in Armada at 6:17 p.m., just minutes before witnesses saw April on the trail. And he was wearing the same dark clothing that matched his description, and he was accompanied by another guy. And then they pulled a recording from a residential security camera. And this was a little before like all the Ring cameras and stuff.
Yeah.
But we were definitely in the area of a lot of home security cameras by now. And this was one that kind of pointed out towards the street. And when you view that security footage, you can see this guy on this blue and white motorcycle passing right near Omo Road, right in front of this house. And this sighting on this camera matched perfectly with the cell phone data that they'd already gotten. And so it's pretty obvious that that's the douchebag. And then they also pulled other neighborhood surveillance, which would place the suspect in Armada that evening. And so we'll just go ahead and say that the douchebag that we're talking about is a douchebag by the name of James Van Callis. And we'll be talking about this asshat, but he is an asshat. I mean, what he did to this girl kind of takes him to almost the next
what he's doing, but when you say asshat, it gets me every time.
Oh, I know. But, you know, there's something about this crime, and I've said it probably every episode, and I probably will until we finish this arc, and it is just something so cruel and vile about this girl's death and the way that he murdered him that, I mean, it just takes him to a new level.
Yeah.
But he claimed that he hadn't left home until after 8:30. Well, he's the one that was identified on the surveillance video at the Speedway gas station with his brother, Donnie. Then, you know, it was obvious that he's the douchebag that was on the motorcycle and everything. And so once they've identified him, and if you remember, I kind of alluded to this a little bit when I was saying that there was a cop that was driving down and they knew they were looking for this blue and white motorcycle. And some people called it like a dirt bike. Some people called it a motocross bike. Some people called it an enduro. And for motorcycle people, that probably means something. For me, I don't know what any of that shit means. I know what a dirt bike is.
I just wrinkled my eyebrows at you. So for me, nothing.
Yeah, like I don't like an enduro, but that was said multiple times. It was an enduro. It was an enduro. And this cop then saw blue and white enduro. So apparently that means something to motorcycle people.
Yeah.
I'm not one, so I don't know.
I'm not either.
But anyway, he was able to identify this motorcycle parked at Donnie Vancalis's house. And then I told you the cop was pretty sharp and he clipped a picture of it with his cell phone.
Yeah.
So that he knew that, when they went back, if anybody said, which they did, that the motorcycle wasn't there, he could be like, oh yeah, dipshit. Well, I took a picture of it. So just kind of summing all that up, the sports tracker app data, the surveillance video, the cell records, created a digital map that aligned pretty much perfectly with witness accounts. And they placed, and all of that stuff placed April and Vancalis on the same trail at the same time, and then showed the progression from her texted warning to her final moments. And so prosecutors in court would later describe this convergence as a unique fingerprint, circumstantial evidence so precise that it filled the gaps left by the absence of DNA or any forensic evidence or anything like that. Now that I've named this asshat, we also got to say that James Vancalis did not operate in isolation. His family played a complicated role in the investigation, from giving him false alibis and making conflicting statements to outright lies, and defiance of law enforcement. So starting with Donnie Vancalis, his brother, technically Donald Vancalis, he went by the name Donnie, and he's the younger brother of James Vancalis Jr., and Donnie's actions and testimony did play a notable but complicated role in the investigation and the trial. So Donnie lived in Armada Township, which would become significant as James claimed that he had visited him on the day of the murder.
Okay.
There's no public indication that Donnie had any criminal record or connection with the murder, but I have my own personal opinions, which everybody by this point should know I'm not afraid to share. And I think the dude's a pile of shit. And I think he's a pile of shit because he lied about his brother.
Yep.
And so he was interviewed by police as part of their efforts to establish James's whereabouts and confirm his alibi. And when first approached, Donnie flat out lied to the police and claimed that he had lost his cell phone. He didn't even know where it was. But I mean, obviously the dude's a freaking moron, as well as being a piece of shit, because he says, I lost my cell phone. I don't even have my cell phone anymore. And so the cop was like, oh, really? Dials the number, phone rings. And then Donnie was like, oh, pulls it out of his pocket, hands it to the cops. I mean, like, what a freaking shit. And then,
hey, look, you found my cell phone for me.
Yeah. Oh, good, looking everywhere for that. So, he tried to lie about James being there when he was there. I mean, it was just a piece of shit.
Yeah.
So phone records would show that Donnie sent James a text at 6:44 p.m. on the day of April's murder, stating that he was home. So this helped to refute James's statement that he was at Donnie's house at the time of the crime, which contributes to the collapse of his alibi. And it also shows Donnie's as big of a piece of shit as his brother is, because if it wouldn't have been for that text message, then he would have lied his ass off. He did lie.
Yeah.
He just got caught in the lie and then forced to tell the truth, no doubt, because he was either going to face perjury charges or he was going to tell the truth. So he didn't have a choice, but he ended up admitting under oath that James had asked him to delete all the text between them, but he didn't and ended up keeping the messages on his phone. And then ultimately, it's reported in some places that he ultimately turned them over to the police. He didn't turn shit over to the police. He lied. They caught him. He didn't have a choice at that point. But Donnie would testify in court about the events of the day. He'd recount that his brother arrived at his house with some kind of a gang gift and showed no signs of blood or torn clothing. And he placed James's arrival sometime between 7:10 and 7:15, which was after the murder had already occurred. But during questioning, Donnie was frequently vague, or he claimed not to remember certain details, which led to some pretty tense exchanges between him and the prosecutor that the judge had to intervene in. Basically, the prosecutor was pissed off because this piece of shit was lying.
Yeah.
And if he wasn't lying outright, he was lying by omission. He was trying to not implicate his brother.
Yeah.
And hey, I'm all about like standing up for your family and stuff, but when your piece of shit brother kicks a 14-year-old girl to death, yeah, hang his ass.
Yeah.
I would never defend a piece of shit that would do something like that. I don't give a shit who they are. But Donnie claimed that his reluctance to immediately turn his phone over was not at all related to the murder investigation, but was due to issues surrounding marijuana use. Because, yeah. So ultimately, Donnie's testimony and phone records contradicted James Van Callis's alibi and would be leveraged by the prosecution to strengthen the circumstantial case against James. So while he was a piece of shit who initially withheld information and attempted to protect himself, he did, I don't know. I cannot say
allegedly
that he actively engaged in a cover-up of the crime. I question anybody that lies to help somebody cover up a crime like this. And so to say that, in my opinion, to say that he had no involvement or, I don't know. I can't say that because a piece of shit's a liar in my book. So he's a piece of shit. So, but nothing ever came out that he was involved in the murder or anything like that. I happen to believe that he was attempting to cover it up and just was too dumb and got caught at it. And then once he was trapped, he had nowhere else to turn except to testify against his piece of shit brother. So the next one that we got to talk about is Brenda. I don't know how to say this. I know how I'm going to say it, but I don't know the correct way to say it. So this bitch's last name is Pupi. And so I'm sure it's not poopy, but that's how I'm going to say it.
Got a feeling.
Although,
it might be. You never know.
Although I have, as you well know, we have a pretty hard and fast rule that we don't attack families of somebody that did something wrong. But just like Donnie, this woman's a bitch, man. And I'll tell you why. So Brenda Pupi.
Please tell us why.
The mother of James Van Callis Jr. And she has remained an ardent defender of her son's innocence, speaking publicly and emotionally about her belief that James was framed by the police and wrongfully convicted. So I'm all about standing for your kids. And hey, I haven't been put in a situation, thank God, that, my kids were convicted of a horrible crime like this or whatever. And I cannot stand in judgment over a parent that says, we're going to still support our son, our daughter, whatever. We'll put money on their books at prison. We'll go visit them. Hey, that's between you and them. And I got nothing to say. The act of just disowning your child and walking away is easy to say, but very hard to do. And so that is not why I'm criticizing her. I'm criticizing her because of her just absolute denial of reality. She asserted multiple times, my son was framed. I believe it with all my heart. I'll put my hand to God that these officers framed my son because they had to get somebody. They had to nail somebody. They had to have somebody. The people wanted someone. I mean, I've heard this story freaking so many times. It's insane. But in this case, it is so beyond reality that I don't know. So she frequently challenged the prosecutor's case, arguing that the evidence was falsified. Police had made errors. The defense for her son was inadequate. Just everything. And then Brenda was heard shouting words of encouragement and love to James as he was led out of the courtroom, saying, "We love you, and we promise to fight for your release forever," and whatever. Again, I'm not attacking her for loving her son.
Right.
I'm just attacking her for being so completely out of touch with like the victim and the victim's family.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just absurd. We get on with the rest of the family. You're going to understand why I don't care for anybody in this whole bunch because they're all a bunch of shitheads. So she did say that if it's the last thing I'll do, I'm going to get my son out, vowing to continue efforts for her son's freedom despite his eventual conviction and overwhelming circumstantial evidence that was presented.
Which she still doesn't believe.
No, she doesn't believe any of it.
They created
she's
it.
in absolute denial about any of this.
I'm a mom too, but come on, Mom.
Yeah, it's insane. And so, the other thing about this is we're in Armada. Teeny tiny little town. We talked about, you told us all about it in the first episode. I mean, this is a tiny little town.
Yeah.
When you see this motorcycle and this douchebag all dressed up in it and everything, and then you see it on the surveillance cameras and stuff, I mean, you got to be pretty freaking out of touch with reality to not be like,
there's hundreds of people who look like that.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
So, but she just flat out dismissed the circumstantial evidence in whole. And she basically said, since there's no DNA, no fingerprints, there's no forensic evidence, then James is being framed.
Right.
I mean, whatever. I do not fault a mother for sticking up for her son and being there for him and all that kind of stuff. But being so out of touch with reality that you defend an obvious, brutal murderer, that is a different subject altogether. And I mean, there's been multiple freaking parents of murderers that have loved and supported their children. I mean, Jeffrey Dahmer's dad is a perfect example of somebody that, he loved his son and whatever, supported him, but also spoke about the vileness of his actions. And he knew he needed to be punished for the shit that he did. There was also that guy that, he was an arsonist in California. And I think he was in California. Anyway, he had burnt all kinds of these buildings down and ended up killing a few people. And his poor freaking dad, man.
Arizona.
Was it Arizona?
I feel like it was Arizona.
But, his dad...
No, wait, never mind.
His dad turned him in, but then loved him, but couldn't support this. I mean, he still visited him. He still prayed for him. He still
can love
talked to him, but
you don't have to condone it.
He had to be punished for what he did. I mean, that's the reality. Next, we get the joy of talking about this piece of shit father.
Oh, joy.
A guy by the name of James Van Callis Sr. And
I'm assuming the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Oh, you have no idea. So,
well, enlighten me.
So this piece of shit lived with his son in Wells Township, Michigan, which is roughly 15 miles away from Armada. And at the time of the investigation, this piece of shit was 66 years old, and he shared the home with his son and then other members of their family. I'm not entirely sure who was all in this white trash freaking whacked out relationship these asshats had going, but
Sorry, you're painting a picture.
I mean, yeah, it is that picture. Like when I call these a bunch of backwoods white trash pieces of shit, I mean it. Obviously, the address of this house became a focal point for the murder investigation. This is also the brilliance of these bunch of freaking redneck assholes. They're growing pot in the backyard, which was not legal. And so cops needed a search warrant. So they just went and looked in the backyard. There's all these freaking pot plants. And so they're like,
okay, we can search here. Yeah.
Bust them for pot. And then we can get a freaking search warrant for the pot, which is exactly what they ended up doing. When I say that James Van Callis Sr. is a pile of shit, I don't just throw a pile of shit out there randomly.
Not this time, at least.
I don't think any time, but I do for a very good reason this time. So James Van Callis Sr. is a registered sex offender.
Oh, joy.
This piece of shit was convicted of 2 counts of criminal sexual misconduct in 1995. One charge was a second-degree offense involving a child under the age of 13, and the other was a fourth-degree offense with a victim between 13 and 16. So yeah, Class A pile of shit. And no, the apple don't fall far from the tree. So both he and his son obviously had criminal backgrounds.
And a taste for the same age in girls.
Yep. And we will find out that James, it was just like Daddy.
Wonderful.
Junior had been previously convicted of breaking and entering and failing to pay child support. Senior, on July 30th, 2014, the police executed that search warrant, which I told you that they got from the pot plants in the back. I don't understand all the marijuana laws, how all that shit works. I've never grown marijuana or anything like that. So I'm a supporter of legalized marijuana for the record, but I just don't pay any attention to that shit. So, but apparently in Michigan, at least at this time, I think you had to be licensed, and James did have a license. Junior had a license, but his license was for 36 plants, and they had 52 plants, which led to the arrests of both Junior and Senior, and charged them initially on the drug charges, which led to the availability or the possibility of getting a search warrant, which then led to all the rest of this stuff. So both men were arraigned and held on $75,000 bail each. And at arraignment, Senior pleaded emotionally to the judge about wanting to go home and care for his dog, saying, "I love my dogs. I just want to go home to my dogs. I didn't do nothing." Well, first of all, this piece of shit freaking raped a little girl younger than 13 and a little girl that's younger than 16. I don't give a shit what the ages are.
Yeah.
And I don't give a shit about the specifics, because he was sexually involved with children. He raped them. This piece of shit shouldn't have even been out to have dogs at all. So I could give a shit less about his sob story about his dogs or whatever. The judge didn't give a shit either, but authorities did clarify that the drug arrests were initially separate from the homicide investigation, but the search and the subsequent arrest intensified suspicion regarding the family's involvement. And I mean, let's be honest. I get it. They needed a search warrant. They see a bunch of freaking pot plants in the backyard. They're gonna freaking jump on
light bulb.
Because by the time these marijuana arrests occurred, he was the number one suspect. They pretty much knew this piece of shit had done it, and they were just hoping to prove it. So, I mean, I don't know really how cops in this little town are. Where did I say it was? I don't even remember. Wales Township, Michigan. I don't really know. I suspect that in a state where marijuana is at least medically legal, I don't know. Again, I don't give a shit, but I suspect it's probably like most states where they're not going and counting pot plants in somebody's backyard unless they're trying to get the son of a bitch. And then,
unless it's a technicality, then
it gives them a good reason. So investigators harbored suspicions about the Van Callis family as a whole, which hopefully the rest
bunch of winners
are starting to understand it the same way that I do and be like, yeah, I would suspect this bunch of white trash freaking hillbillies too. Obviously, James Sr.'s history as being a sex offender, multiply convicted sex offender, I might add, paralleled the sexual motive component of April's murder. And then during the initial search of the family home, James Jr. reportedly remarked, quote, everything he learned from his father, end quote, which maybe so, but that's no freaking excuse.
Right. My dad did it, so that's what's wrong with me.
Shit, so you have a free pass to be a piece of shit? Nah, that's not how that works. There are a lot of children that have grown up in way worse situations than this piece of shit did, that grew up and went on to become amazing human beings that help people, not murder 14-year-old little girls.
I.e. Keith Jesperson's daughter.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's all kinds of people that grew up just terribly, terribly, terribly abused. And one of the girls that was in that house in Ohio, I can't ever remember that piece of shit's name, but where they were kept captive in his basement for like 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
One of those girls went on and she runs an animal rescue where she takes in animals and, rescues them, gets them healthy, does all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's some people who've gone through some horrendous shit that the rest of us can't even begin to imagine.
Yeah.
And they went on to be wonderful human beings. So this is no excuse. But anyway, that's what he said. Daddy did it. It's all Daddy's fault. But it definitely deepened the investigators' concerns about the whole dynamic of that whole freaking weird-ass household, which I can understand that. As it turns out, Senior was sentenced for marijuana manufacturing and received a 1-year jail term with credit for time served. He was not named a formal suspect in April Millsap's homicide, but his house was the central to the investigation and became associated with the public perception with the crime due to revelations about his criminal record and the police search. So he became very unpopular very, very quickly.
Well,
I don't know that he was all that popular beforehand, but after all this shit got out, definitely not. So
cue the violins.
Right. I mean, I think that it behooves us a little to at least discuss the Van Callis household when all these pieces of shit were young. And in no way is it because it gives them any kind of an excuse, but we run a true crime.
It's just good to know.
Good to talk about this shit, right? So
it's making opinions with all of the information.
Right. Talking about their childhood years. So James Jr. grew up in Armada, not too far from the trail where April Millsap was later murdered. And he attended Armada area schools from kindergarten through at least 10th grade and reportedly went to the same middle school that April Millsap would later attend, although obviously years apart.
Well, yeah.
James Jr. was described as a troubled student, accumulating only 3 credits in 2 years of high school, spending much of his time suspended and eventually dropping out.
Oh.
Yeah. Reports of those who knew him growing up describe him as someone who frequently got into trouble, and he had a volatile, sometimes aggressive temperament. None of this is a shock or a surprise considering what this piece of shit would go on to do, but he spent time living on a farm near the area, contributing to his familiarity with the local terrain, including the Orchard Trail where the murder occurred. Obviously, his brother Donnie sometimes lived separately, but remained in close contact. I mean, their whole childhood is just it's just all over the freaking place. I mean, you can just tell when I call them white trash pieces of shit, it really seems like they're white trash pieces of shit. You know, like parents don't really give a shit if they go to school, don't go to school, what you want, whatever. It was noted that the Vancalis family was not highly regarded locally. Obviously, at least part of this, and I would say that a lot of it was probably due to Pops being a freaking pervert and being convicted of raping little girls, and then Junior being a piece of shit that's always freaking in trouble, always getting into all kinds of shit. So, I mean, we all had these kind of people, maybe, hopefully not that grew up to do awful stuff like this, but we all had these kind of kids where their household was a freaking mess. They were a freaking mess. I mean, we can probably say your name 20 of them between the two of us.
Yeah.
The listeners can all rattle off 5 or 10 that they went to school with that were in the same kind of position. And, you know, it's sad for little Vancalis Jr. I don't give a shit about growing up Vancalis Jr., but I don't want any kids to grow up in a household where there's this kind of stuff going on, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, with a dad that's a freaking pervert and who knows what was going on at home. Like, again, it's not an excuse, but when you separate the child version from the adult version, you have to have sympathy for the child, what they were going through, you know, at home. But neighbors and sources describe the home as both physically and emotionally and internally chaotic, which reflects the instability and the isolation that's often associated with troubled households. So as adults, both Junior and Senior continued to have issues with law enforcement, notably in drug-related cases and property crimes. James Jr. exhibited abusive and controlling behavior with his romantic partners, restricting access to basic amenities, not letting them have their cell phones, not letting them have jobs. His girlfriend, Crystal Stadler, which we'll be talking about because she was his girlfriend at the time of the murder, but she described the household as tense, oppressive, and marked by fear. You know, the Vancalis household in general was uncooperative with law enforcement.
Right.
They weren't stand-up people. That's just all there was to it. And so they lived in what was described as a mansion, although poorly maintained, in Wells Township, about 15 miles, again, from Armada. At the time, I mean, it's kind of like his adult life just continued on with the chaos of his younger life. So the household often included, you can't say like all these people lived there because it was kind of... It
was a revolving door of
transient kind of existence, you know? So, but often it would be James Jr., his father, James Sr., and his then girlfriend, Crystal Stadler, their young son, and sometimes brother Donnie would be living there. So only half of the house had working electricity from the grid. The rest, including the suite, quote unquote, used by James Jr. and Crystal, was powered by a generator solely controlled by James Jr., who restricted access if you didn't do what he told you, basically.
Oh.
He's the kind of piece of shit that
one of those
would tell his girlfriend, you know, you're either going to do X, Y, Z, or I'm going to shut the generator off and you can't have power.
Right.
You know, he punishes his significant others. He's just a total piece of shit. Obviously, you know, on the other half of the house, we have a convicted freaking perverted child rapist. The household structure fostered, no doubt about that, a sense of distrust.
Right.
I mean, it's just
a lot of morals working in this house.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it is the definition of dysfunction. Everything about these people, they're just pieces of shit. So then we got to talk about the girlfriend, Crystal Stadler. And so she was the girlfriend at the time of the arrest, and her and Vancalis had dated on and off for about 9 years at at this point.
Oh,
And they had a young son together. And like I said, they were living together at the Van Callis shithole at the time of April's murder. And their relationship, again, was tumultuous. It was punctuated by breakups, reconciliation, significant dysfunction. I mean, I think we all know these people too,
oh yeah.
where you're like, just freaking get the hell away from each other.
Yeah.
Stay away from each other. Everybody would be happier.
You're toxic.
At one point, Stadler had a child with someone else during one of the breakups from Van Callis. It's like everybody involved on this side of this case is like dysfunction junction. It is, how else do you describe it but white trash bullshit? Because that's pretty much what, I mean, it reads like a white trash manual.
Yeah.
So,
Wait, they have those?
I think they must.
Okay.
I don't know how they all do the same things. If not, there has to be like a school they graduate from once they drop out of high school.
White trash
This
school.
is- This is how you become a piece of shit. Now, I will say, I'm not going to badmouth Crystal. She obviously made some poor choices, but the choices that she's going to make are going to help the investigation. And so she gets a kudos from me for
Okay.
that. She would describe Van Callis as both abusive and controlling.
Right.
Like I said, not allowing her to have access to a phone or a car, controlled the generator so she wasn't allowed to have power. And she would recount episodes of intimidation, threats, including telling her that he would, quote, bring her down with him if she talked about
Okay.
this. She would say that the majority of their years together were, quote unquote, not harmonious, and that she was a victim of domestic violence during their relationship, which I wholeheartedly believe her. And I'll say that because of this. So she originally, when the cops went and talked to her and everything, piece of shit was home. So the cop.
Wait, piece of shit senior or piece of shit junior?
So confusing, isn't it? Piece of shit junior was home. And so the cops came and they originally questioned him and everything. And they said, you know, can we have your shoes that you were wearing on that day? And so he was like, of course. And he hands over his shoes. The cops take them and they leave. Crystal at that time was saying, basically giving him an alibi, you know,
Mhm.
no, he had nothing to do with this, no, blah, blah, blah.
Because he was there controlling her.
Right.
Yeah.
And we can say that because once he gets arrested on the marijuana thing, he's in jail.
He's safe enough to talk.
She calls the cops and she says, I got to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so then she goes and tells them, and she says, you know those shoes that he gave you? Well, those are not the shoes that he was wearing, because when he came home, he took his shoes off and he was like bleaching them and scrubbing them and all of this kind of stuff. And then he ended up like, I think he threw them away or burned them or some shit like that. So if we remember, little April had the imprint of the Air logo, the Airman logo on her. Well, when the cops said, well, what kind of shoes was he wearing? She said, well, Nike Air Jordans. And then, although the shoes were gone, she pulls up a Facebook picture, actually several Facebook pictures of that piece of shit wearing those shoes. So she was able to show that indeed he did own a pair of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then she would later go on to say that on the night of April's murder, he came home acting, quote unquote, acting weird. And again,
How could she tell?
right. He came home acting like a white trash kitty raper. So, but she found him cleaning his shoes with hand sanitizer, which she had never seen him do. Obviously, not something that's done a lot. She discovered wadded up hair and grass in his Carhartt hoodie and was told to wash it. And then both the hoodie and the shoes would later disappear.
But he made her an accomplice.
Essentially, yes. Or that's what he was attempting to do. Anyway.
Yeah.
So Van Callis instructed everyone, including Stadler, to lie about his footwear, telling them to say that he wore K-Swiss shoes not the distinctive Nike or Jordans, which again would match the footprints that we know
Right.
are from April's body. And Van Callis would tell her, quote, "I messed up. I need you to stand by my side," end quote. A statement that Stadler interpreted as a confession, and
Sounds like it to me.
sure sounds like it to me too. And then again, she'd later pull up that picture on Facebook and be like, "No, I'm telling you the truth. This piece of shit has these shoes. They were black and white. Here's a picture of them in them." And she testified that she once had an affair, quote unquote, had an affair during a breakup in their long relationship, which just further illustrates this on and on
Yeah.
chaotic, freaking horrible freaking relationship. But the prosecutors and the jury found her testimony to be sincere and credible. And I did too. I mean, I watched her testimony. I got to say, my heart really went out to this girl. You know, she obviously had some bad taste in guys, but this poor girl was she was a better girlfriend. I mean, she was in a position where, and I would even probably go so far as to say, I think the vast majority of women in her position wouldn't have the constitution to even step forward once he was arrested.
Yeah.
And I'm not faulting them for it because they're in so much fear of their abusive partner that they're just terrified that even if they go to the police, that they're not going to get convicted and then they're going to get out and kill them, beat them, hurt them, whatever.
Send somebody else to do it.
Right. And so I'm not at all criticizing those women when I say that. But what I am doing is really giving her kudos for just stepping up and being like, I don't know, this is my one chance to get rid of this piece of shit.
Yeah.
I really need to do this because it's the right thing to do or whatever it
Or
was.
I'm not going down with him.
Yeah. Whatever it was, hats off to her for freaking having the gumption and the guts
The hole in my lip.
to do it. So initially, she was present during Van Callis's initial interview with police. And, you know, like I said, she kind of evaded the questions, stayed silent as much as she could, but it was out of fear of him.
Right.
And then she would later become a crucial prosecution witness, revealing that she was living with Van Callis at the time of the murder. She testified that he came home acting weird, all the stuff that we talked about. And if it wouldn't have been for her, I don't think he would have been convicted. Her testimony was that huge. And, you know, she said he told everybody to lie. She talked about his admission to her with, when you say, I messed up, I think that's pretty telling.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, she really gets the kudos from me, which I've made clear. But, you know, I feel really bad for women in those situations anyway. But, you know, when they're brave enough to take the opportunity to break those bounds and hand this family justice, then I think she deserves a little extra kudos for that.
Right.
So obviously, Van Callis told the police that he was wearing the K-Swiss tennis shoes. Crystal testified that he was wearing the black and white Air Jordans. Then I don't know how I mean, to me, shoes look like freaking shoes, but to like the shoe people at the FBI and police, I don't know. Each one's its own freaking deal or whatever. So they actually like get a hold of Nike and give them this Facebook picture of these shoes,
Right.
order the exact same shoe in the same size. Basically, they get that shoe.
So they can reconstruct.
And then they compare it to her wounds and all of that kind of stuff. And it was a perfect match to the wounds and everything. And then we already talked about, you know, that April had bruising on her face, which was consistent with the contours of a motorcycle helmet. And investigators seized his helmet, which appeared recently scrubbed, though they couldn't recover any DNA. But the combination of the forensic alignment and the suspicious cleaning supports the theory that the helmet was used as a weapon. And then, we talked about the sweatshirt and all of that kind of stuff that came up. And then a search of Van Callis's computer uncovered disturbing material. And it was searches it was shit and I think I have it in the next episode where I have the direct quotes of it and everything, but it was shit how does an older guy get a young girl to like him? That kind of shit. He was basically pursuing...
Trying to teach himself how to groom.
Yeah, I mean, he was following in dad's footsteps. Basically, he was sexually attracted to little girls. And he was attempting to get in a relationship, quote unquote, with a little girl. I mean, obviously, that really displays pretty much exactly what I think happened in this crime, what I think investigators believe happened in this crime. I mean, he pulled up next to this little 14-year-old girl, tried to put the moves on her. She was creeped out by his freaking nasty ass and was like, no, get away from me, creep. And he got pissed off and beat her to death. That's what happened. I have no doubt that's what happened.
Yeah, sure feels like it.
And so, I mean, I don't know. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, that's the right. Mm-hmm.
Obviously, individually, all those pieces of evidence that we talked about, you got the computer forensics show that he's obviously a freaking sick, perverted pedophile, just like daddy.
Yeah.
We've got the hoodie. We've got the shoes that disappeared. We've got the odd behavior. We got him telling Crystal that he made a mistake or he screwed up or whatever. We've got the helmet evidence. We got the motorcycle. We have him matching the description. Individually, none of those really mean a whole lot, right? I mean, you can't say, well, somebody on a motorcycle was seen. He has a motorcycle. He's the guy.
Yeah.
And you can't say, oh, well, he has a motorcycle helmet and she was hit with a motorcycle helmet. He's the guy. And you can't say, oh, there's a Facebook picture of him wearing Nike or Jordans.
He's the guy.
He's the guy. And you can go all through those individually. And you could say the same thing. None of them mean shit. But when you put all of those together, they really start painting a pretty clear picture of a piece of shit that beat this poor little girl to death.
Right.
But, if we're talking about that, then we also have to talk about the limitations. And this, again, wasn't that long ago. This is 2014. So this is the day and age of DNA, of forensic science. This is well after CSI, which really has driven a lot of that, as funny as it sounds. But, we sit juries now that expect DNA and forensic evidence.
Yeah.
It's huge. Prosecutors have a really hard time getting a conviction in cases that would have sailed to conviction 30 or 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, without forensic evidence, they have a really hard time proving guilt. I, for one, happen to think 9 times out of 10, that's a good thing. But it is a limitation. In this case, the crime scene on the Macomb Orchard Trail just didn't yield very many forensic clues. April's body showed the signs of drag marks being pulled off of the path, but there was no foreign DNA that was recovered. Blood at the scene all matched April. There was the shoe impressions, but they're very limited. And if officers were able to do the search warrant and find the shoes, well, that's a different story, because you can most certainly identify one particular pair of shoes as opposed to all of them in that brand. But the shoes were gone, so they didn't have that. They had no DNA evidence. They had no smoking gun. They had no, obvious murder weapon. I mean, he stomped the girl to death.
Yeah.
There's no ballistics on that.
Yeah.
And the foot impressions would have been the only one, and he got rid of the shoes. So they were left to build this circumstantial case. And again, in this age where forensics rule the day, they didn't have it. So they were left having to build the circumstantial case. And to overcome these gaps, investigators were going to have to lean very heavily on the eyewitness testimony that consistently placed Van Callis with April. They're going to have to rely very heavily on the sports tracker app data, the phone records that maps the struggle, the death, the phone taking off on the motorcycle,
Yeah.
the video of him, right just past where he threw the cell phone or where the cell phone would be later found. His trail, matching all of that.
The bravery of the abused girlfriend.
Exactly. Yep. The cell tower records, which completely blew his alibi apart. His brother's bullshit coming apart at the seams. And all of the behavioral red flags and incriminating searches, like the shit that was found on his computer. Again, all on its own, that indicates a freaking sick-ass pedophile, but doesn't necessarily mean that he killed this shooter.
Yeah.
But taken all together, they're building a pretty strong circumstantial case.
Yeah.
So in the next episode, we'll be talking a lot more about that and the trial and all of that kind of stuff as we continue to move through this arc. So it started as a shadow, a blur on a bike, tearing down a trail where no engine should have been. At first, that's all it was. Rumor, fragments, pieces of memory from people who weren't even sure what they'd seen. But as the investigation grew, the shadow gained shape, and then a name. Witness statements, digital tracking, behavioral red flags, they all began pointing in one direction. The man on the dirt bike wasn't just a coincidence. He was there, at the trail, at the time April was killed. And the more investigators looked at him, the more the story cracked open. But suspicion and proof are two very different things. Detectives had to fight through noise, false tips, half-truths, and the desperate guesses of a community that wanted answers yesterday. Armada had become a town on the edge. Every dirt bike in the county was suddenly suspicious. Every stranger walking alone was watched. The public wanted a name. The media wanted a face. But law enforcement knew that a single misstep, a premature accusation, could destroy the case. As one detective later said, quote, "You don't get a second chance in a case like this. You name the wrong man, you may never recover." And that tension between a grieving community and cautious investigators became part of April's story. It wasn't just about finding a killer. It was about holding the line between rumor and fact. Meanwhile, the puzzle pieces clicked into place. April's phone data tracing her desperate run, eyewitnesses describing piercing eyes and an angry stare, a helmet that left marks on her face, shoes that left their impression on her skin, a suspect whose story unraveled under the weight of timestamps and surveillance. At the center of it all was April, a girl who had texted her boyfriend a chilling warning, half in jest, but prophetic in hindsight. "I think I almost got kidnapped. OMFG." A girl whose final zigzags on a GPS map became the coordinates of a murder. A girl who never made it home from a simple summer walk with her dog. The man on the dirt bike wasn't just rumor anymore. He was real. He had a name. And the case was about to change. When someone like April Millsap is taken, it's not just a personal loss. It's a fracture, a ripple effect that moves through classrooms, neighborhoods, towns, and the entire country. Her friends didn't just lose someone they sat next to in class. They lost the Friday night sleepovers, whispered secrets about crushes, the hallway laughter between bells. They lost birthdays where April should have been singing off-key, proms where she should have been dressed up, a graduation where her name should have been called. And her mom, Jennifer's loss cannot be measured. She walked that trail hoping for a miracle and instead found a nightmare. Quote, "My life changed forever. April was my everything," Jennifer would later say. But in the middle of that devastation, something else emerged: resilience. Jennifer refused to let April's story be reduced to a headline. She spoke at vigils, reminding the community, quote, "She was more than what happened to her. She was light and she was loved." The town of Armada carried that torch. Students tied pink ribbons to lockers. Hundreds gathered for candlelight vigils. The trail where April walked lined with flowers, crosses, and handwritten notes. One sign simply read, "Justice for April." Another, "We will not forget." April's story didn't stop in Armada. It spread far beyond Michigan. News outlets across the country carried her photo, a smiling 14-year-old with a love for animals and a kindness that drew people in. Strangers who never met her mailed cards, lit candles in her memory, and followed her case as if she were one of their own. And that's the thing. This isn't just because of what happened. It's because of who it happened to. April made people feel seen. She rescued strays and brought them home. She had dreams of becoming a veterinarian. She laughed easily, cared deeply, and carried a gentleness that the world often overlooks. Quote, "She was the type of girl who made you want to be better," one classmate would say. In a time where cruelty often screams louder, April Millsap's quiet kindness still echoes. So we'll keep telling her story, we'll keep saying her name, and we'll keep honoring the light that she left behind. So that wraps up this episode of Dark Dialogue. The man on the dirt bike may have started as a blurry figure in the woods, but with every witness, every data point, and every inconsistency, he became more real. And now he has a name.
But a name isn't enough. Building a case meant digging deeper, tracking April's digital footprint, confronting a suspect's history, and connecting the threads the killer hoped no one would ever find. This was the turning point, the moment April's story began shifting from mystery to momentum.
If you believe April's story deserves to be heard, here's how you can help. Follow the show, leave a review, give us a thumbs up, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Every listen keeps April's name alive. Every share keeps the pressure on.
You can also support our work by subscribing to our Substack, joining us on Patreon, or sending a donation through Ko-fi. It helps us keep these stories in the spotlight and do the kind of deep victim-centered work you won't find anywhere else.
Want to do more? Check out our Adoptive Victim Program, where you can help us amplify cases that still need answers, or join the Dark Dialogue Collective, our boots-on-the-ground initiative of volunteers who believe the fight for justice never ends.
And if you have a case you want us to cover or a lead you think we should hear, email us anytime at info@darkdialogue.com. We take every message seriously, we follow up, and we never stop looking.
April Millsap mattered. She still does. And we'll keep telling her story until there's nothing left to question. This has been Dark Dialogue. Keep listening, keep searching, keep advocating, and keep the dialogue alive.